Chapter 3. Awaken My Heart. Marianne sorted through an ornate walnut-stained chest containing her dresses and searched for a particular one that would please her mother for tonight's dinner. She recalled Mama telling of ladies in the state who changed gowns according to the time of day and scheduled activities. What nonsense! Marianne felt perfectly content in wearing the cotton skirts and blouses of the servants. An unpleasant thought occurred to her, and she frowned. Would the Don expect her to dress lavishly when they married? And would Papa allow her to take Diablo with her, perhaps as part of her dowry? With a sigh, she pulled a pale green gown from among her other frocks, fitted high at the waist. The dress gathered and flowed to the floor, with lace trimmed round the neckline, cuffs, and hem. Camida's daughter, Josepha, a dark-eyed beauty of 14, helped Marianne slip into the garment. "Will you arrange my hair?" Marianne asked. "Mamma enjoys seeing it pinned up, and I lack patience to do it myself. I would make you more beautiful than you already are. I love you, Josephia. If I had ever enjoyed the company of a sister, she would have been just like you." Moments later they viewed the effects in a hand-held silver mirror. Marianne's hair looked decisively Spanish, complete with beaded combs. "Gracious, Josephia," she laughed now. "If I could find a lace mantilla." Suddenly remembering her upcoming marriage, Marianne turned to her. "Do you believe a father should always arrange a marriage, or should a woman marry for love?" Josephia, huge eyes danced. "Senorita Marianne, a woman must always fall in love before she marries. I think it's the best way. I did hope for love, but now I have no choice but to marry the man Papa has selected." "I'm sorry," Josephia said. "Maybe you will learn to care for him. I'll light a candle and say a prayer." What more could Marianne ask of one she loved so dearly? Down the long hallway to the dining room, a dozen candles flickered in the iron chandelier above a pine table. The Phillips adobe home stood as tribute to the Spanish. Every room held carved furnishings decorated with bright colors of mineral paint. Mama had originally added touches of Virginia, her girlhood home, but Papa had them removed. He claimed Tejas was their home, and they would honor the Spanish who allowed them to live in the country and the Philip hacienda to prosper. Although Papa had sworn allegiance to the Roman Catholic Church in order to purchase his land, he and his family did not attend any of the 5 missions set along the San Antonio River. The priests were too busy tending to their duties to enforce the religious laws. This concession allowed Mama and Marianne to privately worship according to President's beliefs. Upon the table sat tortillas, beef stew, and vegetables for many more than the 2 women who dined there alone. Seated across from each other in leather-bound chairs, they talked freely without Papa there to silence them. "Mama, you look lovely tonight," Marianne said. "The deep purple gown is fitted for a queen." She felt reluctant to comment on her mother's health. "Thank you. You are my medicine. You have always been my joy. Just as Jesus is my strength." Mama's face saddened. "When your baby brother was born dead, after we had lost so many children before him, I wanted to crawl into the grave too. But I cannot live in the past another day. I am determined to be strong again." Marianne smiled. She had prayed earnestly for her mother's health, but until recently there had been little improvement. Perhaps God had not forgotten Mama after all. She glanced at Mama's untouched plate. "Aren't you hungry?" Her mother folded her thin hands primly in her lap. "I am extremely tired, but I want to spend every minute with you. Mummy, it's important that you eat something. For you, I will have a little." Angry voices resounded from the rear of the house. Startled, Marianne strained to hear every Spanish word while she studied Mama's blanched face. An unfamiliar male voice barked for Camila and Josephia to step aside. The 2 Mexican women screamed, sending Marianne to her feet. Pottery crashed into the tile floor, and she realized the intruders must have turned over the massive cupboard, the trastero that held their finest dishes. With Papa and several of his men away, only the women servant presided in the house, and Marianne knew she could not get to Papa's weapons fast enough. Before she could gather her thoughts, 4 men burst into the room, waving pistols and muskets, while pushing Camila and Josephia ahead of them. Dressed in simple clothing and tattered sombreros, the men looked more like farmers than evil men, but the weapons and the grim looks upon their faces gave them away as criminals. "Por favor, leave," Camila said in Spanish. "Senor Philip will return soon." A man laughed. "I know he's been gone from the hacienda since early morning." Terror gripped Marianne, but at the sight of how shaken Camila Mama looked, she gathered her courage. "What do they want, Camila?" She rushed around the table to her mother's side and bent to embrace her shoulders. Marianne's mind spun at the gravity of their situation, and her gaze swept across the table. Where once the tantalizing aroma of food rose pleasantly, now she smelled desperate men. Please, Carmita, do not let these men know I understand them, for I fear it will not go well for any of us. Again, Carmita asked the men what they wanted. To take Senor Philip with us, the same man said. The apparent leader, he wore a silver dagger at his waist, in addition to carrying a fine pistol, no doubt stolen. Why? Carmita asked. What has the Senora done? The woman is nothing. We need her so Senor Philip will know we refuse to leave La Flor. It is our valley and not his for the taking. His dark eyes flared. Kidnapping the Senora will not help the people in the valley. Carmita reached for Josephia and pulled the young woman to arms. It would only make the situation worse. Marian turned to Carmita. Please tell us what he said. Papa's greed has caused this. God help us. After Carmita's translation, Marian stood from embracing her mother's shoulders. She stiffened and curled her fingers into her palms. She faced the leader, a harsh-featured man who looked to be in his 20s. Tell him my mother is ill. She cannot go anywhere. Carmita translated the message, but the man issued a sardonic laugh. Tell him Senor Phillips could die without proper attention, Marian said. Then they all would face my father for murder. She hoped none of them could hear her fluttering heart or see the lack of courage in her eyes. The pleading for her mother proved useless, and nothing Carmita said dissuaded them. Let me go in her place, Marian finally said. Tell them I am Senor Philip's daughter. No, you can't, Mama grasped Marian's hand. There's no other way, Mama, Marian said. Ask them, Carmita, I beg of you. Against Mother's protest, Carmita translated the request. Marian stood between her mother and the men. They would not take Mama without a fight. She glanced down at the knife resting beside Mama's plate. Would God forgive her if she purposely plunged into the leader's heart? If only she could speak directly to him, reason with him, but that was foolish, and she dared not risk angering the man. The other men waited stoically with their weapons aimed at the woman. We'll take the daughter, the leader said a moment later, and Carmita relayed his words. Tell Senor Philip that Armando Garcia and his followers hold his daughter in exchange for La Flor. He will kill the girl in 5 days unless he rides to our valley unarmed and alone to talk. Any sign of his men will result in the Senorita's death. Carmita gasped. You act in Amaro's behalf? He would never attempt such treachery. Marianne pretended ignorance until Carmita could translate the ultimatum. Even then she refused to show any signs of fear, but emotion swelled. The moment two of the men clutched Marianne's arms, Mama, hysteria echoed throughout the house. Marian glared at the leader, wanting to shout at him for this absurd scheme. For a moment she considered spitting into his arrogant face. Mama, I will be fine until Papa returns and gives them men what they want. Papa would never give in to their wishes. The man should simply end her life now. But caution curbed her tongue. Mama didn't need to endure the pain of witnessing her daughter's murder. Tell them to release me, she instructed Carmita. I will go willingly. When Carmita informed the leader, he seized Marianne's upper arm. He squeezed it sharply until she bit into her lip to keep her from crying out. The pain aroused a sense of panic for what surely lay ahead. He pulled her towards the kitchen. We need horses, he nodded to two men standing nearby. Search inside for weapons and meet us at the stables. One. He surely put up a fight, even with a crippled leg. Please, Tio, don't be a hero. Let these men have anything they want. In the blackness of night, save for 2 torches held by the vicious men, she saw several others awaiting their leader. One held on to Diablo's bridle. What is this, Philippe? I thought you wanted horses, and now you have the Senorita. Armando will not approve of this. Her Tio's anger echoed across the night. Be quiet, old man, or you will taste my wrath. I see you have my stallion. Marian heard her stallion stomp Philip to the ground. Diablo would never allow her captors to seize him. No one rides the stallion, one said. Not even Senor Philip can tame him. One, she said in English, tell him the horse is mine. One wiped his brow. No one can touch this horse, Philip, but the Senorita. Try if you must, your men have gotten nowhere. From the torch she saw Philip's seething glare. Hauntingness and contempt ruled his countenance. Feeling her world collapsing about her, Marianne turned to Juan. If he must have Diablo, then allow me to ride him. If she had learned anything from observing Papa, it was his fearlessness. Juan translated, but Philip grabbed the reins. The stallion lifted his front feet with more fury than she'd ever seen. Philip held tightly, but Diablo twisted and pranced, broke free the leather straps. A moment later, the proud animal stood at Marian's side. For now she can ride him, Philip said, but the stallion is mine. Amado will reward me with the horse for bringing him the senorita. With Ron's final translation, she mounted Diablo, and his powerful muscles relaxed. A word for the leader, and the others found their horses. She watched Philip mount a swayback mare. The horse suited him. Marianne took one last look at Juan. She longed to see his familiar smile. I love you, Tio. If I do not see you again, take care of Mama. Tell her I love her. No more words passed between them, for Philip ordered his men to lead the hacienda at once. Through the blanket of deep indigo, the band of nearly a half-dozen men pushed westward onto the rocky hills and hiding places known only to the followers of Amado Garcia. The band skirted hills and twisted around low places until Marianne knew for certain she'd lost her way. Even if she could break free, she'd be lost in the black maze. Diablos easily kept pace with the abductors' horses, while Marianne did nothing to hinder her stallion's stride. His speed and agility against the other horses made her wonder if she could escape. But whether she could go, that wouldn't put Mama in danger. The sorrow etched into her mother's face with their farewell held her more captive than the Mexican rebels. Mama, her treasure, her friend. She knew her mother's state of mind. With Papa's impassiveness and Marianne no longer there to encourage and love her, she worried about her mother's will to stay alive. She turned her attention to Amado Garcia, her father's enemy, and now hers. She wondered how much more cruel he could be than Philippe. Confusion seared Marianne's mind. Her friends had spoken highly of the Mexican leader and his love for his people, but any man who ordered the kidnapping of an innocent woman deserved a hangman's noose. Until her abduction, Marianne had sided with their leader. The people of La Flor deserved their own homes in a fertile valley where they could provide a good living for their families. She had seen a few of the children and their shy mothers when they came to visit Juan and Camila. Mama had given them leather for shoes and clothes when Mama was away from home. At last, Philip slowed the men and they rode single file through a narrow opening, cut between two hills of steep rock. Up ahead, she saw a glimmer of light. There was clearly not La Flor, but rather a wayside place meant to keep her hidden. What is going on here? A man emerged from the shadows. Where did you go? I didn't give you permission to take these horses and ride out. Armando, Philip carried himself as though he'd just ridden in from a victorious battle. I have done you a favour. Marianne's gaze flew to the infamous Amado Garcia, just as the voice sounded like the man she encountered earlier today. The face matched the mysterious stranger. Revulsion for her earlier musing about him added to her confusion. The man stepped to the side of Philippe's horse. What have you done? His very words commanded attention. He glanced up at Marianne. And who is this? Philippe swung his leg over his horse and jumped down beside Armando. I have Senor Philip's daughter, so we can bargain for our valley. I left instructions with Senora Phillips that unless our demands are met, you will kill their daughter. You kidnapped his daughter? That makes us look like barbarians. Armando's words were low, meant only for Philippe, but Marianne heard and understood every word. Philippe whirled around and pulled her from Diablo. His hand stuck into her waist, but she refused to cry out. Diablo snorted and reared. Two other men tried to seize the stallion, but the horse kicked its front legs, sending them sprawling on the ground. This time she did not offer to settle her horse. Let them taste Diablo's wrath. She heard the sound of a whip and struggled to free herself from Philippe's hold. No, she cried in English. Diablo, let them take you. Her stallion calmed enough for the two men to lead them away. Let her go, Armando said. I fear you have made a terrible mistake this night. He strode towards the fire and snatched up a narrow log as a torch. Philippe released her, and she stood defiantly before the famed outlaw leader. If he hadn't set Philippe to raid the hacienda, he should apologize and send her home. Take a look at the senorita, Philip laughed. She is beautiful and not afraid. The torch blinded her, and she prayed he did not recognize her from early in the day. Armando released a laboured breath. Philippe, we must speak in private now. I have done a good thing. This is the right way, amigo. Philippe clenched his fist. We have the power now to get whatever we want from Senor Phillips. You have acted lower than our enemies, Armando said. This will cause the death of our people and bring down the Spanish and Americans on us. Are you sure this is not what Orton did to your sister? He turned to a man behind him, one Marianne had not seen before. Emilio, take the senorita to my hut. See that she is not harmed. Put a stallion with the other horses. Marianne breathed hope. Perhaps she'd be taken home before the night was over. She glanced about but failed to see any woman, and her stomach churned. She dared not think of home until she felt her mother's arms around her. These men, who knew what they were capable of, she fights to her death before she allows them to touch her. She could feign bravery, but they held the weapons, and she was their prisoner. Amelia took her arms and urged her along. As they passed the fire smelling of mesquite, she saw the man's feature, anger crested the face of a typical farmer, young, darkened by race and sun, nothing distinguishable. He could have been any of so many Mexican men. Was he angry because of her father, or because Philip had gone against Armando? Amelia led her to an obscure lean-to where he flung open the door and ushered her inside. Much trouble tonight, he said in his native tongue. Oh, how she wished she knew what he meant. Marianne stumbled and fell as the door closed. Sitting on the damp earthen floor, she attempted to focus her eyes on the surroundings, but utter blackness met her. Massaging her arm, she wondered what manner of insects and animals inhabit her cell. The weariness of the ride settled over her. It must be after midnight, and although she craved sleep, she dreaded the unknown. Drawing her knees to her chest, she sought to pray. Every noise alarmed her, as though at any moment Armando would return with evil intent. At least she understood her abductor's words. Juan's patient instructions had given her insight to what was happening around her. After what could have been hours or minutes later, for she dozed between her prayers, and the door squeaked open and Armando strode in. He closed the door and rested a torch in the corner. At last Marianne could see about her. The makeshift shelter was indeed small, a single room large enough for only a few people. Are you resting well? He asked in Spanish. She ignored him for fear he might realize she understood his words. Let me look at you. He stepped forward and cupped her chin. I recognize your stallion, senorita. Twice we have met today, although these circumstances are not as pleasant as the first time. With his vile hands upon her, Marianne agitation erupted. She swung at him, but he caught her wrist, clutched it until her eyes filled with tears. Pretty, full of rage. Not that I blame you. Philippe may have caused the death of us all. He grabbed her other wrist and forced both arms behind her back. Quickly he grabbed a wrap around them and easily as a vaquero bound a calf. I don't like doing this, but I don't want my throat cut while I sleep. All thoughts of his releasing her vanished. She struggled against the bindings. Let me go, she cried in English. Armando soothed a long black sideburn on the left side of his face. I don't understand you, senorita, but I'm sure you're not pleased. For now, you'll have to be tied. I can offer you a grand room, but a dirt floor. Maintain your spirit. You and the stallion are a matched pair. Removing his sombrero and bandana, Armando waved the cloth in front of her face. If you choose to annoy me, I'll gag you. She did not need Spanish to comprehend what he meant, and the idea of a sweat-soaked bandana across her mouth tugged at her stomach as much as the idea of his filthy hands upon her. Marianne turned her attention to the door. Already her arms ached from the tightness of the knotted rope. How foolish she'd been earlier today, when his handsome face invaded her thoughts. Armando Garcia would not think twice about killing her when Papa refused the rebel's demands. Armando extinguished the torch, and she heard the rustling of his straw pallet. Moments later, his even breathing caused her to believe he had fallen asleep. Her wrist was bound too tight to lie comfortably, and her attempts to find a less painful position failed. She wanted to give in to tears, but she fought them with a vengeance. I'm truly sorry, Armando said. This is for my people. I will do anything for them, but I will never consider murder, and neither do I relish the idea now. Her heart seemed to leap from her chest. He rose from his bed. She couldn't stop her body from trembling. To her amazement, he loosened the ropes, then laid his blanket over her. I've made a terrible mistake by allowing Philip to manipulate me, he said, but until I find a way to make him see his willingness, I will guard you myself. Chapter 4. Armando lay awake on his pallet while his mind spun with the evening's events. In the past, he'd been bold in openly defying the gringo's threat for his people to abandon La Flor, but kidnapping the gringo's daughter. Tonight, he'd stepped into dangerous territory by not returning the senorita to her home. This maneuver would force his enemy to choose between his lust for land and his own flesh. For Armando, a choice would not be necessary. For the gringo, he wondered. Reports came to him of Weston Phillip's ill treatment of his family, and how the senor and senorita gave generously to the people of La Flor when the man wasn't around. Armando had thought about the senorita all day. Never had he suspected her to be a Senor Philip's daughter. Now she lay within a few feet of him, frightened and alone. This was not how he envisioned a second meeting with her. The longer he lay on his pallet and begged for sleep, the more his thoughts whirled in his head. How did one young woman tame such a wild horse? Had she bewitched the stallion? And the name Diablo, devil, the sound of her voice soothed the animal's wild spirit, sweet, gentle, almost musical, like the lull of a guitar on a star-studded note. Armando confessed the fair-skinned maiden tugged at his senses, and he did not like her effect at all. While father would not trade his ambitions for gems such as this, a part of him wanted to know her name, but he saw a weakness in such intimacy. She looked too much like her father not to have his evil heart. Armando must keep his distance and use sound logic in dealing with her. This dispute with Senor Philip involved a way of life. The matter with Philippe involved honor. If Armando returned the senorita, he looked like a coward, not earnestly seeking the betterment of his people. If he kept her in captivity and waited for Philip to render a decision, he risked the gringo summoning the soldiers at San Antonio de Bejar to settle on an uprising. No matter the outcome, the people of La Flor facing losing their valley and their lives. Apprehension seized Armando's thought. This afternoon, when he attempted to gather the men together, he had learned Philippe had disappeared with 5 other men who believed violence was the best way to handle Philip's threats. No one admitted knowing where the men had gone. Armando forced himself to consider Philippe. No longer could Armando discount him as a mere irritation. Philippe possessed an ill temper along with cleverness and cunning. He befriended those who sought a blood price for the unfairness mandated by those in authority, and he persuaded them to his way of thinking. Armando realized Philippe craved power, but his short-sightedness tactics would get them all killed. Marian heard Armando stirring and realizing morning had arrived at last. Such a long, dreadful night. It had trickled by endlessly, a black prison. Sometime during those hours she'd grasp the meaning of life without God. Without him, every hour would be like the night. Once a furry creature crawled across her foot, and she bit her tongue to keep from crying out. Her entire body hurt as though she had been beaten and left to die. She attempted to focus her mind on other things, even marriage to the Don. Perhaps being treated as a beloved daughter, a rarity for her, meant a more pleasant life. Oddly, she never considered marriage as a substitute for her father's affection. At this moment, she even craved the face of her father. Would he come? Marian wet her lips. She tasted dirt and desired privacy. How could she convey her needs to Armando? Choking back a sob, she clung to the only hope left in her miserable state, that of God. Mama had said that God reached out to her when she was truly broken, and Marian definitely felt broken and alone. Armando rose from his pallet and stepped outside, leaving the door open for a cascade of light to flow into the small hut. Morning. A new day. By now her mother would have sent someone after Papa, if he came at all. Within moments her captor returned. He peered down at her, emotionless, reminding her of the dispassionate Mexican who told her the missions. We have a new day. He united the loose ropes binding her. The release sent tiny needles pricks from her arms to her shoulders. She was more determined than ever to mask any uncomfortable feelings. Massaging her throbbing wrists, she avoided his gaze. He helped her to her feet and nodded towards the door. Together they stepped into the light of dawn. She blinked until her eyes grew accustomed to the light, and she could view the campsite, an array of brush and scattered timber against the rocky hillside. A strong wind could blow it away like chaff, and it reminded her of the wicked people in Psalms 1. Armando led her beyond the sight to a remote area several feet away. He pointed to a heavy growth of brush and rock jutting from the cliff. Do not try to run away, senorita, he said. I know this land far better than you. For the second time, Marianne realized she did not need to understand his language to conceive what he meant. His tone had spoken fathoms. She slipped behind the heavy undergrowth, while humiliation flushed her hot in her cheeks. She vowed to be grateful for all God's blessings. He was beside her on this perilous journey. He held her hand and guided her with his presence. She had prayed most earnestly for deliverance, but this might not be in God's plan. A few minutes later, she emerged from the brush. I'm sure your father loves you very much, Armando said, as if she understood. You have more courage than any woman I have ever known. I am not brave at all. I am terribly frightened. I must cling to God and hope he remembers me in my time of need. Back in the hut, Armando left her alone. He closed the door behind him and imprisoned her in the dark. She wanted a glimmer of sunlight. Was this how she must spend the next 5 days while they waited for Papa's answers? He returned shortly carrying a small plate of stew, a tortilla, and a cup of water. Armando watched her eat with a curious frown upon his face. Avoiding his scrutiny, she concentrated on the food, a bit water with few vegetables, but filling. Her next meal might be a long time from now. We'll leave for La Flor in an hour, he said, my lovely prisoner. I hope the people of La Flor see that nothing will be gained by Philip's foolishness. Perhaps we shall see how your father reacts to our demands. Marianne watched Diablo pace the perimeters of the stone-walled corral in search of an escape. The stallion caught sight of his mistress and stopped abruptly, his stance proud and erect. His ears lay back flat, and he tossed his head, snorting his disapproval. She held her breath as the stallion lifted his forefoot and slashed the air. Diablo sensed her danger and could scale the gate if provoked. Envy nudged at her. Oh, to be free from these horrid rebels! Marianne agreed with Diablo's distress. She knew the same frustration as the beloved horse. She stepped forward, but Armando clutched her arm. Wait to see if my men can calm him, he said in Spanish. Enraged with his hands upon her and exhausted from the night's ordeal, Marianne attempted to pull herself from her ductless grasp. How she loathed this man, and these poor people looked to him for leadership. One of the decorated combs that Josephia had skillfully placed the evening before had slipped to the ground, sending a lock of hair across her forehead. I have done nothing to warrant this treatment, she called. She challenged him with an angry gaze. And you are sadly mistaken if you think my father will give up his demand for La Flor in exchange for me. I matter nothing to him, nothing. Immediately caution sealed her lips, for the consequence of inciting Armando could be deadly. One of his men might speak English. Then Armando, Philip, and the others would know what she thought, that she understood the every word. Marianne took a ragged breath and swallowed the rash words threatening to erupt. She ceased to struggle against him and forced herself to relax. With a free hand, she lifted the remaining comb from her hair and released her thick tresses to fall around her shoulders. Her defiant glare shifted to the ground, where a fat black spider crawled across the tip of her slipper, captured in a tangled web of power. Marianne knew that impetuous action could get her killed, and logic demanded that she dispel her indignation. She raised her head to meet Armando's dark scrutiny, but found amusement lingering in his eyes. Oh, how the frustration battling inside her longed to be unleashed. Instead, Marianne focused her attention on the men retrieving their mounts. Armando's horse stood poised, while a man whom she recognized from the evening before saddled the animal. But the men assigned to Diablo made no progress. She observed their futile efforts and basked in the satisfaction that her stallion refused to allow any man to approach him. It's no vaquero brave enough to bridle the senorita's white stallion, Armando chuckled. You can ride him, Emilio said to Marianne, leading the dun to Armando. We value our heads. Armando threw back his head and laughed. I agree. We will insist our captive prepare her own horse and ride the devil. Marianne listened to the men banter and tease. The leader obviously had a strong following. He knew when to become one of them and when to issue orders. Yet she questioned why Armando chose to live among these people when his light skin and obvious mark of his Spanish blood could have gained him a higher social status. Once Diablo was ready, Armando's gaze captured hers. She attempted to appear unafraid, but her trembling body would not still. He beckoned her, but she refused to move. He lifted his chin and silently demanded her presence. Obey the man, but Lord, he is evil. Obey him. God did know best, didn't he? Marianne patted the stallion's neck. Stay here, Diablo. Every step in submission to her captor left an uneasy sensation in the pit of her stomach. Armando removed his bandana. You cannot see where we are going, senorita. He whirled her around and tied the cloth firmly over her eyes. The nearness of him, his hands upon her flesh, and his scent reminded her of the horrors that possibly lay ahead. She shivered. How could she trust God with these vile men surrounding her? And with her eyes covered, how could she ever find her way back home? Throughout the morning, Marianne rode alongside Armando, but not at the maddening pace of the previous nights with Philippe. She recognized the rebel leader's deep, resonant tone as he talked with his men. At one point he sang a song she remembered hearing from one. My heart dwells with a pretty young maiden, a maiden fair who loves me not. She cast her dark eyes upon another and left me weeping alone and lost. Marianne thought it was a sad song, especially the day Armando sang it. She decided he must feel about Lafleur the way the song depicted lost love. For certain, he knew not the meaning of compassion, or he would have returned her to Mamma's arms the preceding night. Grasping Diablo's mane and rein, she tried to ignore the thought of toppling over her stallion's head at any unexpected drop along the trail. How desperate Mamma must be! But Camilla loved Mamma too. Her tear helped Marianne the night Mamma laboured with the baby, and comforted her when she cried in the loss and wanted to die with him. Papa was gone that night too. Certainly God granted provision for one faithful woman who knew not the destiny of her own daughter. I am always with my children. Once again God had spoken to her, or had she gone mad? I am here with you. Marianne startled. The whisper had draped a protective cocoon around her heart. Lord, thank you for your holy presence. Hope edged across the heart. A portion of Psalm 23 came to mind. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear no evil, for thou art with me. Marianne took a deep breath. With God she could endure anything. I have always been here for you. How she treasured the soft whisper, gentle as the spring rain and soft as the flower petal. Her eyes moistened and she quickly blinked back tears. The Lord of the heavens now surrounded her with his love more completely than her mother's arms. Oh God, I do love you, and I do ask your forgiveness for all those times I have not been faithful yet. Yes, even stubborn and rebellious. Calm Mamma's heart as you have calmed mine. Marianne heard not another sound except the beating of her heart, the men conversing, and the rhythmic gait of the horses. No matter what the future held, she was not alone. Thanks for listening.